Welcome to another episode of the REConnect podcast, where we're helping people drill down to their core purpose. And I've got Raymond Sjolseth here, and he has definitely done some work here for where we're starting. And so, Raymond, when I asked you to describe your purpose in one sentence, you said to give the tools I spent 30 years learning the hard way. And I think that's an awesome outlook. Where does that come from for you?
Sure, Ryan. Thanks, first of all, for having me on the show. It's a privilege. I've listened to a few episodes and I appreciate what you do. And I love the question. I love your mission here. For me, it's about growing up a certain way, being programmed in the environment I was born into, right? And of course, like, I'm lucky to be alive, right? There's a 400 trillion to 1 chance or whatever that is that life happens. And I think that we get told what to do. We don't get asked as we grow up and as we go through the societal system of education, our family, go to school, job, whatever it may be. And for me, I always felt like the black sheep, like straight up. And everything that I did, I felt like the black sheep. I was not a good student. I graduated high school with a 1.83 GPA. I went to a junior college to make my mother happy and ended up leaving with a bunch of incompletes after that and just went to work full time. And then I started my own company and I never looked back, right? So 45 plus companies, of which most have failed later, I asked myself a lot of questions. And this drilling deep of the core purpose, recently I went through and I kind of reassessed what my core values were. And I got crushed in COVID. I lost a massive company in COVID and got hurt really bad. And that was a good restart, let's say, right? From below zero, to say the least. And the 3 words that I came up with for my core values were abundance, freedom, and wealth, with abundance being number 1. That if I can establish my core being as abundant, that means there's enough. And that word has significant meaning to me because of where I came from and how my mindset was, and what the thought patterns were, and the childhood that I have. And when I got hurt in 2020 with COVID, a lot of things that I thought I had handled, money mindset, like emotional type stuff, traumas, man, they just all came flooded back. Right. So I had to reassess and reconnect with myself and really take a good look at, what do I want to do and what do the next 10 years of my life look like and how am I going to start over?
Yeah, that's it's tough. COVID obviously changed so many things for so many people, and so I don't believe your story to in that part of it to be, something that only you experienced, right? We
Yeah,
all
no
know
way.
there's a bunch of companies that kind of shut down, and I think that there's strength in that as well. So utilizing those 3 words, abundance, freedom, and wealth, um, how are you incorporating that into what you do daily?
Really asking myself one question: if I do this 1,000 times, will I hit my goal? So that it's intention driven, right? Like looking at my week on a Sunday for 20 minutes, just looking at my calendar going, okay, do I need to have all of these meetings that are on here? Which ones are income generating activities? Which ones are relationship building activities? Which ones have my 10-year goal in mind? So I'm being my future self now, right? If you haven't read that book, fantastic book. And I'm just reevaluating my intention behind the decisions that I'm doing, right? Like I know if I eat clean 80% of the time, I'll be in pretty good shape. I know if I work out 80% of the time, I'll be in pretty good shape. So I'm not going for 100%. I'm going for 80% consistently, because that's way better than 100% occasionally.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the tough part is, and even 100%, a lot of people will take it to, I got to do 110%, right? And
Sure.
then they do it twice and never again and think it's going to work. And that's a big piece of, so yeah, being able to be consistent at that 80%, like you said, and some people it may be 60%, and some people it may be 40%, and a lot of people it's 0 because they don't have that intention direction. But yeah, being able to formulate that's huge. So tell us a little bit about uh, what a little bit more about what you do and who you do it for, to be able to put those 3 themes into that direction.
Sure. So prior to COVID, I spent 30 years making products while also being a real estate investor. When COVID happened, my wife and I pivoted. We started an EXP team here in Chicago. I started coaching agents. I started a podcast. I wrote my first book, all niching down towards real estate and saying the next 10 years, I'm just going to focus in real estate. But of course, things change, right? So now I have a coaching program, both a group and one-to-one. I have 2 more books coming out this year. My podcast is still up and going. It's going through a rebrand right now. And I run challenges, live events, courses, workshops, a bunch of different stuff. That's one side of the business. The other side of my business is primarily off-market multifamily properties. And I also focus on a funding side. I'm an advisor at a funding company that specializes in startups, real estate, and disruptive technologies. And that's part of how I've been able to move forward and help people in the multifamily space, is by helping people put deals together creatively.
Yeah, that creative space is definitely a growing space with the
100%.
challenges that are coming into play on the lending side, just with interest rates and pricing, period. They're getting to a point of being able to have to utilize some of that creative stuff, and especially on the investor side, allowing people to get into the game that aren't normally in the game, which
Yep.
is an awesome approach. So utilizing that stuff, creating, obviously that can help create wealth and freedom, and the abundance aspect of it. How did you formulate the mindset of the abundance aspect? Because a lot of people struggle with that, right? We struggle with the competition part of it. Like, if he gets one, I don't. How did you get to the ability to recognize that it is abundant, and if he gets one, I can get one too?
Yeah, I don't think that I've arrived, meaning that it's a work in progress, right? Like, I'm always trying to get better, be a better person, be a better dad, be more abundant, be more mindful, be more intentional. And I think abundance is something that's a decision at the end of the day, right? Like, I came from a very blue collar family. We weren't poor, lower middle class, but there was never enough money. There was never enough time, right? There was never enough of this, enough of that. I had both parents and grandparents that had houses that were halfway remodeled, right? With nothing ever done because there wasn't enough time or enough this or enough that, or drywall was expensive, whatever the case may be. And I think part of that, the lesson in that, is just that it was so clear what I didn't want. I just needed to go the opposite direction, right? Back to the black sheep thing, is that where can I find the blue ocean? Right? So it's abundance in this case. But again, I thought that I was there because I had made a lot of money, millions of dollars, and then I lost it. Then I made more millions. Then I lost it. Right? So now I'm making millions again, going to a higher direction. I want to build something bigger. I want to build something better. I want to build something way more sustainable, which is why I got out of the product business and I'm focused on real estate. Right? So I don't have to start over all the time. Every time I either sell a company or lose a company or whatever the case may be, I can just keep building, just add doors. That's my goal. But abundance is a decision at the end of the day. And I think it was Edison who has the quotes that says, you can live in a friendly universe or a hostile universe. It's your choice, right? So I look at the same. If you want to live in scarcity, you're going to be fighting all the time. If you want to live in abundance, there's plenty for everybody. Which way is less resistance?
Yeah, it's when you get to a little bit of the other side, right? Like, because I can tell you've seen the other side of that, right? Like, you were talking about how you came from the aspect of not enough and never enough and always striving to get more and grab more, and all of that. All that does is, one, it makes you hold on to what you have and not being willing to let it go to grab something that might be better. And all you're able to do is do this and pull in what's near you, right? You're not able to reach above you that you can't see and be able to reach that. How do you, like, obviously with the coaching aspect, how are you coaching people to recognize that, and how are you fostering that via the coaching aspect of that?
Sure. Thanks for that question. My coaching program is very different. I'm not interested in teaching anybody how to be a real estate agent. You learn how to be a real estate agent by being a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're going to show up and do contracts and open houses and listings and whatever. It's practice. It's not timing the market. It's time in the market. It's that simple. And sure, there's better mentors and all that kind of good stuff. I want to teach people how to be the best version of themselves and how to understand where they came from to drive awareness, how to understand what their strengths are and truly assess them, bring them into their business. And once they understand kind of where they are and what their strengths are, then they can leverage those for lead generation. And it becomes a whole bunch easier to handle, manage, and build your business when you're working within the confines of yourself and not fighting. Example is cold calling, right? Most people don't like cold calling. I don't like cold calling or door knocking, but I have 32 Facebook groups, right? So I leverage social media. I leverage Facebook groups. I figured out questions and drivers on how to get the audience to raise their hand so I can continue a conversation, because that's all follow-up is, right? It's being able to continue the conversation. Like, what do you have in your toolbox that allows you to continue a conversation with somebody, whoever it is, buyer, seller, investor, for sale by owner, expired, doesn't matter. Each one has a different toolbox. So in that sense, inside my coaching program, a big driver, specifically the first couple months, is about where you are, who you are, where you came from, the effects that that has had on your career, let alone your business moving forward, and how to get away from self-sabotage and how to understand how to take more control of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, right? To take care of yourself in efforts to build the financial reward that people want, because that's the majority of it, right? Everybody wants more money and they think real estate's easy and a low-hanging fruit to get it, which we know that that's not the case. It is work. You are an entrepreneur. You have a startup company. Often you're wearing all of the hats until you get enough pipeline to build consistent income. Then you hire an admin. Then maybe you start building a team. So from that standpoint, my coaching program is focused on really helping people understand how to take control of themselves, because then the business becomes easy once you understand how to manage yourself.
Yeah, that's I was at a conference last week, and I just, like, the guy that leads the coaching program there, a lot of it is the nuts and bolts stuff, right? Like he's also helping in that regard, right? With that support. And I know I'm sure there's an aspect of the coaching program of like, okay, this is, if you were to want to do this, here's how it is, and go do it, and then you'll experience if you like it or you don't.
Yeah, 100%.
And a lot of it is, for him, it was, he's sold 100 homes every year for the last, 12 years, 13 years now. And he talks about how, like, literally the only difference between 40 and 100 is a stricter management schedule. Like being able to take that 3 hours in the morning and do nothing but go get more business or find a way to go find more business. And, because it is they call it a contact sport, right?
Yeah.
Like it's making the contacts and introducing yourself to people. And, it's so funny. I come across people like, now this is another podcast that I've started, and people are like, how do you do it all? And it's just like, that Calendly does it pretty easy for you. You just link it to a calendar and it schedules everything out, and you just don't miss, right? Like that's the answer. And so, yeah, like you said, like it's not about, you learn to do the job by doing the job, but being able to be grounded and rooted in what matters, and really, like, you're sort of helping them form truth around the past and where they are, right? And I've had loan officers present the same way of, well, I want to sell 100 homes, or I want to do 100 loans. Okay, you did 3 last year. Let's talk about what that's going to take, right? Like that's a great future goal, but like, are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to settle in and recognize that, like, that's a big change for what you've been doing and what you are doing now. So that truth aspect is a big thing too.
Yeah, 100%.
So how do, like, obviously you've been doing the coaching piece for a little bit, a little while here. How do people transform when you're guiding them, as a result of what you give them? How are you seeing people transform from that aspect?
Number one, confidence. Number two, closings. Because that's what happens, right? The majority of agents, especially newer ones or transitioning ones, somebody that was an engineer or somebody that was a teacher, somebody that was in the military for 20 plus years, right? They transition out of these careers that they were in long time, very stable, very predictable income, and they don't have any confidence, right? Because they spent years being an employee, not being a business owner. And they also don't understand what they just bit off and what they just jumped into, right? So confidence is the first thing I see when it comes to transformation, which is what I do. I'm interested in transformation, not information, right? There's plenty of information out there in the world. But that transformation of confidence, when I can see people showing up differently And one of the things that I'm really proud of is the community that we built inside my program, which is now a little over 50 people. That my program's a year, by the way. And then we run in 4 90-day cycles, everybody that comes in. And it's evergreen. You can come in the program anytime. You don't have to start January or something like that. But I see that transformation within 60 days, right? When they're showing up to the coaching calls, when we're doing our one-on-one onboarding, when we're in Facebook Messenger going through it and they start producing and doing the things that they're being told to do, they're showing up for themselves. They're not showing up for me or anybody else in the group. They're showing up for themselves because they're doing the work. So confidence, following confidence, then you start seeing deal flow, right? And that's the game. So however I can support them to build more confidence and then give them the tools that they need to do that. Sure, there's tools in there, scripts, guides, templates, whatever, to help them get closings, do social media, all of that stuff. But that isn't the hard work, man. The hard work is the self-work, right? That's the whole premise. My program is called Be Better, Build Better. The whole premise is that to build anything better, you have to be better. That's what it's required. As soon as you can decide to be better, you can start building whatever you want. And that confidence stacks, right? It compounds over time.
And I often see a lot of creativity start to come out. And I think that that's one of, for me, seeing those transformations of people. And you put 60 days on it, which is really interesting because I've seen a lot of things lately around building habits actually take 60 days, not the 21 that we've been kind of told for a while, right? And so that 60 days is a huge marker. But seeing, when you're consistent over that stretch of time, it allows you to be a little more creative. And then when you have the confidence behind the consistency, then you're going to be really creative because you're going to just throw something out there and whatever happens with it. And like, if it brings you something, you're like, oh, I want to grab that, do it again. And it's interesting to say that, like I said, that 60-day piece is really such a strong number now that's being represented in so many different spaces that I'm recognizing. Like when you can do something consistently for 60 days. And you mentioned that, the things you're telling them to do, I think a lot of people need that because like you said, they're coming out of these jobs where they had a structure of this is what you do in this position. And then they get into real estate and they think it's just going to be another, like, okay, if I just show up and do this thing, I'll get it. And it's this wide open space. There's so many different ways to make money in real estate. Yep. And they start chasing all of them. And to make that framework of like, okay, just do this today and like, just get through that. I think that's awesome. What are you seeing? Are you having any fallout from it where people don't follow that path? Or are you seeing anything on the flip side of that as well? I'm not saying failures of the program, obviously, or failures of the people, but are you seeing some people that like kind of push back and they don't experience the same results?
No, honestly, I feel like I've been very lucky. There's only 2 types of people in my program, those that show up, do the work and have transformation, and those that just don't show up, right? Like that's part of it. I've had a couple people that come to me, pay me for even one-to-one coaching. We have one session and then they just disappear, right? Like that happens. And sure, I'll chase them for a minute to make sure they're okay or safe or whatever. But like, if they don't want to show up, then they don't want to show up. That's up to them. It's their business, right? Like it's not mine. One of the things I talk about is accountability, right? Because that's a big word in every industry, but specifically in this industry, right? There's a few words you see in Facebook groups: lead gen, CRM, and accountability, right? Those are like the top 3. Yeah. And my argument to everybody, I wrote a newsletter about this, is that I have a love-hate relationship with this word, because anybody who starts a business and then wants somebody else to hold them accountable, it makes 0 sense to me, right? Like if you don't want accountability, don't get married, don't be a parent, go work for somebody else and you can just do what you're told and show up and whatever, right? But if you're going to be a father, if you're going to be a partner with somebody, married or whatever, if you're going to have your own business, you have to decide to be accountable to yourself first and foremost, let alone everybody else that you're deciding to serve. So for me, that word is almost meaningless because it's just part of being at this point, right? But a lot of people struggle with that. So that specific word, I'll push back. Why do you want me to teach you to be accountable? Why can't you decide to be accountable? And it's a hard conversation that I have with people. Like, this is your business. This is your life. This is your income. Do you want to live every day on repeat and be disappointed with the results? Like, that's a miserable life.
And
Do you
arguably,
want,
okay, like you said, accountability of just part of being now, right? Like you have to be, no matter what you're doing, whether you're in a position where you're out, hunting your own food, or you're in real estate, or you're at a job, like you're accountable to someone. So like it's an I can't even say that, innate factor of what you of life. Like you're going to be accountable to somebody. You might as well be accountable to yourself, and especially in real estate. And if you can't be accountable to yourself in real estate, go be accountable for the client that you said you were going to take care of.
it's funny you say that, because that's one of the analogies that I use is, are you going to show up for your clients? Well, of course. Then why wouldn't you show up for yourself?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But
and it's interesting because on a lot of my content, I'm in that space of being able to call people out at that point, right? Like being able to say some things that it might trigger a couple people, and I've done enough self-realization that triggering is a reason, right? There's something behind it. Like there's
yeah,
something there. Why are you triggered? Because you have something that you're seeing in that comment. And one of the videos I made was talking about, it's just this grand notion of like, I want to be a realtor for life. Do you really, or do you just want to hang around until I'm ready to buy my next house or sell my house and collect your check afterwards? Like you're not interacting with them in between really at all, and they only use you out of convenience. Like we're not developing those relationships, and I
mhm.
think being able to, like you're putting them through that mindset piece of that first 60 to 90 days, that develops that aspect, and being able to carry that into the business just changes the entire business.
It's a
And
perspective shift. Yeah.
yeah, that I think, one of the Brian Tracy, I think it was, with the paradigm shift, and I listened to his interview and it was fantastic. And like that really set home for me. It was just like you're looking at it one way of like, I want to be a real estate agent for life, and then you're just letting them live their life with no impact. You have a bunch of knowledge to be able to pass on to them, and you're not doing any of that. Like you have experiences, and that's where you say to give the tools you spent 30 years learning the hard way. Like the fact that you're willing to pass those forward just shows like you are living that. Like that's a fantastic way to do it.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's true. I mean, that's why I wrote the book. That's why I do the podcast. That's why I do all these free challenges and events and workshops that my team and I host, right? Is to get it out there. Like, I don't want people to suffer, right? If I can help somebody shortcut their career by a year, 5 years, or 10 years, I'm in 100%. But I'm coming from abundance. I'm not
And
coming
knowing
from
that there's
lack,
more out there. Yeah.
scarcity. There's 8 billion plus people in the world, man. Like, the population's going up, not down, right? Like, how can you believe in anything else? When I look at the ocean, I don't see it getting smaller. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. There's always another boat to jump on, for sure.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So to kind of wrap it up, I like to ask this one at the end, because it is such a bigger view of everything. What is one of the largest global challenges that you want to resolve and work on?
Communication. It's really, communication is a massive problem, right? Like, the more tools we have, the easier that technology makes it to communicate, the less we do it at an authentic level specifically, right? Like, who are you engaging with that you're having real conversations with? Are you showing up as your authentic self? And, everybody wonders the secret to lead generation in any business, right? Let alone real estate. And I call it the 3 C's. It's very simple. It's a conversation, a connection, and conversion. That's how it happens, right? The timeline is the variable, but for the most part, that's how it's going to happen, right? So I met you, boom, we connected. We're here on this podcast, and the conversion is we're having a podcast, and I'm sure we're going to do more stuff together in the future, right? Like,
And creating that deeper aspect for sure. And we talked about that a little bit pre podcast. There's, a lot of people are looking at themselves as introvert, extrovert, whatever they want to call it. And they put that label on themselves, which immediately takes them out of conversation and communication.
yep.
It allows themselves an out to not have to be uncomfortable. I'm an introvert, I can't go do that. When in reality, it's you haven't worked on the skill set to go do it, right? Like because ultimately communication is a skill set. And if you want to look at it at its simplest thing, there's literally a method to it. And to get better at communicating, you can approach it scientifically and mathematically if you want to. There's so much research out there about scripting and a flow of conversation and all of that stuff. So, that would be an encouragement for that with that communication piece is like people, you just need to understand that you can learn it. It's not like I used to call myself an introvert all the time, and obviously I don't do that anymore. So,
Well, and even to take it a step further, right? Okay, fine. You want to put a label on yourself. You're an introvert. Well, guess what? In every state, city, and town, I'm sure there's a Facebook group that's whatever, West Cleveland introverts, right? Like you don't have to be alone. You can go find your people and decide, hey, is this where I want to be or do I want to get better? Maybe I want to join like you're saying, an extroverts club and listen to a bunch of people talk, right? Can I handle the noise? Is that what you want? Like I say, I don't like cold calling. I can cold call. If I have to, I will, but I don't have to these days, right? Like there's way too many other tools out there available that I enjoy, that I can leverage, that I'm strong at, that I don't have to do that. So people are calling endgame before they're even engaged, to your point. Like that's the problem.
and the biggest part with that is, the community in still traveling the communication line is communicating with yourself. Did I create this belief for myself?
Yep.
Or did someone else tell me, oh yeah, he doesn't talk much as a kid? Or were my parents just talking too much and I wasn't able to talk and now I've developed this pattern? It's interesting to look at life in that direction and be able to point out and go, yeah, I really didn't come up with this. Like somebody put a pair of glasses on my face and I never took them off. And
Yeah, or
it's
maybe it's a childhood thing where they didn't feel heard, so they just didn't talk and they shut up. So that's why they're an introvert. Yet inside their mind, they're doing 200 miles an hour running laps and have a lot to say. They're just afraid to say it, right? Because somebody told them that they should shut up or they shouldn't be, talking, or it's quiet time, or whatever the case may be, right? Like none of our issues are really mysterious. Like they all stem from our early years. We just have to be aware of why, where, and be willing to confront them, to change and grow. And, again, that's why my core values, abundance, is number one. Like I believe in abundant growth. I do want to be better. I want to change. I'm not perfect. There's lots of stuff wrong, right? That I look at, that I want to be better at, that I want to change, that I want to improve. The difference is I'm no longer judging myself for it. I just say, hey, I want to get better at this. And then I start working on that. And my newsletter is a great example. This week, I published my 12th edition. It's once a week, every Wednesday at 9 a.m. That was something I had a really hard time committing to because I didn't think that anyone would want to read what I'm going to write about. Right. But I have a ton of subscribers and it's growing and it's awesome to see. And I removed the box. I used to think that I just had to write about something in real estate. No, today's newsletter was all about extensionalism. I can't even pronounce the word, versus stoicism, right? And the differences between the two, yet also some of the similarities and the mindset behind it and how I bring that into my business.
yeah, it's interesting when you find, you mentioned, I think you find your tribe or find your community, how that when you do that, or when you even just like you don't do it and you just start putting out information around something that you want to find, how easily it is attracted to you, right? Like it's not, the work isn't easy, but you're going to look up and go, like you said, like I'm up to 50 members now. Like you probably went, okay, we were at 50 and I thought we were at 20 5 minutes ago.
Yep.
And it's crazy how fast that can come to you because you're putting out stuff that are going to connect with the right people. And that's the biggest thing for me and especially for a lot of agents is like they're just not around the right people and they don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they think they're doing the right things or saying the right things or going down the right paths. And it's just they haven't connected with the person that makes them and turns them and gets them to be on fire, and open that up within themselves. So you're doing God's work over there, Raymond, for sure with the coaching aspect of helping people get to that point and recognize that. And that's what we're doing a lot, trying to do with REConnect as well, is get back to that so that we can really get to a place in the industry where we don't have real estate agent going, oh, the lender screwed this one up, and the lender going, oh no, it was the real estate agent, and then the client goes, well, I don't want to work with either one of you in the future because it sucked. Like, we don't want that anymore. So so I appreciate the messaging you're putting out. If you could leave us with one thing that you'd like to leave us with, I'll open the floor for you, and then we'll finish up.
Start today. Whatever it is, start today. You want to be a brand new agent? Start today. You want to be a new loan officer? Start today. You want more clients? Start today. Just start today.
Yeah, that one step. Take that one step and start.
One little step.
Well, awesome. I appreciate it, Raymond. And like you said, I'm sure we're going to be doing some stuff together after this as well. There's a great messaging throughout, and hopefully somebody can connect with something on here, and we'll look to see you again in the future.
I love it, man. Thanks for doing what you're doing, Ryan.
Right.